Okay, so now we are jumping into chapter 2 of the Phenomenology of Spirit, written by Hegel. Again, I have prepared the OCR version for the text, so it should be easier to read, especially when you're using a smartphone to view. So the second chapter of this book is by itself just not very lengthy. It's just about 10 pages in total, slightly longer than the first chapter. But just as what Hegel originally planned, the first 3 chapters of this book are actually included in a single volume, a single chapter. So that's why each of these first 3 paragraphs is just not very lengthy because, well, they're just supposed to be 1/3 of an ordinarily planned volume, let's say when compared to chapter 4. So immediate certainty does not take hold of the truth, for its truth is the universal, but it does want to take hold of the this. This basically means that immediate certainty, or we cannot immediately grasp the truth, but instead, because the truth of immediate certainty or sensory certainty is the universal, in language, I shall add. But what we can immediately grasp, immediately take hold, is this. What kind of this? Well, that has been discussed in the previous chapter. So, in this chapter, we will shift gear to the discussion on perception. So, on the other hand, perception takes what to perception is the existent as universal, as universality is perception's principle per se. Its moments, which are immediately self-differentiating within it, are also universal, namely, I, a universal, and the object, a universal as well. That principle has emerged for us, and our taking up of perception is thus no longer a phenomenal taking up, as it was in sensory certainty, but is rather a necessary taking up. So in Hegelian philosophy, whenever we see that we are moving to something that's necessary, it means we are looking for something called logical necessity. This is a fundamental principle of Hegelian logic. In other words, this sentence basically indicates that we are shifting gear from sensing to some kind of reason, because we are looking for something that's necessary. Then, in the emergence of the principle, both moments, which in their phenomenal appearance only fall out of that appearance, have at the same time come to be. One of them is the very movement of pointing out, and the other is the same movement, but as the simple. Hegel himself explains, actually, so I can save my words. So the former is perceiving, and the latter is the object. So I, as the subject, is perceiving the object. This is a very basic philosophical formula again. And it's also important to note that the process of pointing out the object is perceiving. It sounds redundant at first, but this is actually quite important, because we constantly have this mental movement of pointing out to something. Just like you are pointing out your attention to the screen in front of you and listening to what I'm saying. So this is a very important action that we are constantly doing. So according to its essence, the object is the same as the movement. The movement is the unfolding and the difference of the moments, and the object is those moments as jointly grasped together. This is basically saying that the object is showing and unfolding its essence to us while we are perceiving it. For us, all in itself, the universal is, as the principle, the essence of perceiving. And in contrast to this abstraction, both of the distinguished moments, namely the perceiving and the perceived, again, what's being perceived is the object, which should be obvious to you at this point, are the inessential. Then what happened? Because both are in fact the universal or the essence, both are essential. But while they are related to each other as opposites, only one of them in the relation can be the essential, and the difference between the essential and the inessential must be shared between them. This is a very classic Hegelian dialectic, if you don't know. But we can just simply follow his text, follow his train of thought, and see how he unfolds his logical and philosophical thinking. One of them, the object determined as the simple, is the essence, indifferent as to whether it is perceived. However, as the movement, perceiving is what is not constant, which can be or also not be, and it is the inessential. Basically, here, Hegel is telling us that, well, the object just simply is there, regardless of our perception, regardless of whether we are perceiving it or not. It's still there. So in that sense, our perception becomes inessential, while the existence of the object over there is essential. This should be pretty straightforward, I guess. Hopefully you are following through.